DC is one of the top of the list for us. You look at Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, Aquaman. These are brands that are known everywhere in the world, and the ability to drive those all over the world with great story is a big opportunity for us. We have done a reset. We've restructured the business where we're going to focus, where there will be a team with a 10-year plan focusing just on DC. It's very similar to the structure that Alan Horn and Bob Iger put together very effectively with Kevin Feige at Disney. We think that we could build a long-term, much stronger, sustainable growth business out of DC. And as part of that, we're going to focus on quality. We're not going to release any film before it's ready. We're not going to release a film to make a quarter. We're not going to release a film the focus is going to be how do we make each of these films in general as good as possible. But DC is something that we think we could make better, and we're focused on it now.
All right, my mic is red hot. This is Renegade Operative, and it's been quite an eventful week for DC Extended Universe fans because David the Axeman Zasloff decided to go to your favorite franchises, pull out that axe, chop down the tree, and basically equate the erasure of some of these IPs and some of these movies within Warner Brothers as tax write-offs or mid. We're not confident in these movies. We're not going to release anything that we don't believe in. And the first casualty, that first tree that was chopped in half, that was eviscerated, that was decapitated, was Batgirl. And I'm sure not a lot of people were expecting it. I'm sure that people were like, Leslie Grace really deserved this movie. Such a nice, kind-hearted person where, you know, Ezra Miller is going around beating up people in Hawaii. He's still getting his movie. How is it fair? How is it justified that someone like this is essentially getting their spotlight stolen from them? And there was a lot of questions about this activity and how Zasloff was handling the DC Extended Universe in the future going forward, because canceling projects, whether you like them or not, is a huge deal. Marvel doesn't tend to do this often. They tend to give you exactly what they're going for, what you probably want, and it's assured that even if it's delayed, it's coming out. I have no doubt that there will be delays in Phase 5 and Phase 6, but you're still gonna get everything announced in those slates, whereas DC, everyone is up in the air. It's confusion. No one knows what the fuck is going on. I seen things that I never even seen before. Like, you have super fans in the DMs of these other shows, like people asking James Gunn, is Peacemaker okay? People asking the Blue Beetle director, is Blue Beetle still gonna come out? Fans shouldn't be doing this. They should have some guaranteed information about what is coming out and what is going to happen in the future with all these changes to HBO Max and them merging Discovery, etc. These are real hard-hitting questions that people had over the 10-year plan rhetoric that they decided to announce yesterday. So I'm going to get right into it. I structure a list of all the things for this one-man podcast that I will talk about. I will try to make this expedient, but no promises. This is the good, the mixed, the bad, and the lingering questions of the 10-year plan that was initiated by David Zaslav for the DC Extended Universe. The good. Insiders say that Hamada was an honest producer over at DC Films and they want him to stay. If you don't know the backstory to that, Walter Hamada saw the Batgirl cancellation and he was like, all right, fuck it, I'm done. Because it was a movie he was confident in, he probably believed in, and it was canceled before his very eyes. And I assume the cancellation of that is going to bring down the morale at DC Studios. Well, I should say DC Films, because DC never really had a studio, but we're going to get into that later. And I don't blame them. Like, if you work on something so hard and you believe in it, new guy comes in, takes over, and then that's canceled, that's going to cause concern. That's going to cause you to be like, okay, I put my heart, soul, and pride into this project, and now it's destroyed. And I heard that Walter Hamada was a subject of multiple regimes where they wanted him to do ideas. They said no, they wanted him to do something else, etc. So I can feel that frustration. He said he's staying until Black Adam. I hope he stays. He needs to stay at DC Films, because despite all the bullshit, stupid ass fucking hearsay given by Ray Fisher about the Justice League investigation and how Hamada was aiding and abetting, I'm glad that a lot of insiders came out and said, from what they know, the people they talk to, the people who are close to Walter Hamada, not these fucking dumb internet stands, they said that this guy was really pushing for Fisher. This guy wanted him to stay, but the allegations were way too much on him, the fake allegations. He said that, you know, he pushed for James Wan, James Gunn, talented visionaries in DC getting the proper place of authority. And you want this man to go pushing for like $1 million movies like Aquaman, overseeing the Batman, overseeing it was another one that he oversaw. I think it was Joker. These were, you know, good movies to a lot of people. They really were. And why would you want that talent to leave? I think, if anything, DC needs talent to stay. They can't afford to lose people to the competition. So Walter Hamada has always been a unit over at DC. Despite everyone trying to fuck him, he's still trying to be genuine and give us good content, good stories, etc. So I think it is pertinent that he stays. Next up is DC will have its own individualized studio for content creation. This was listed in the HBO Max sort of referencing, and they had like PowerPoint presentations and everything, and they talked about the future of DC when they moved on from that. And I think one of the things that we saw was DC was getting its own individual studio to work on content, similar to Marvel Studios with Kevin Feige. I think this is a good thing. They can keep things in-house. Finally, DC has a studio. It is big enough to show that DC Comics has that recognition for content to ascend and bounce off ideas in a workplace. And I think that was the best solution, to have everyone come together and sort of work on things and try to strengthen the core, so to speak, of DC. Whether it's working on like the Trinity or working on other projects, animated or not, it always needs to be a close, frequent unison of teamwork. And that's the only way that this place is going to survive, instead of pitching off a random idea to an executive and having it go into the ether. Perfect idea. I have no problem with that. I think DC Studios always needed to happen if they had a film division but not a proper studio. And I think finally they can relay these ideas off each other and it will go super well, hopefully. Next up, they talked about the heroes they wanted to focus on. So mostly the initial Trinity. You have Aquaman, Batman, Wonder Woman, and Superman cited as a character powerhouse going forward with the timeline. And I think that's great. I think finally Superman is supposedly getting his recognition after all this time, when, you know, Superman is cool to model a movie after. He has these crazy abilities, super speed, super strength, the Man of Steel, invulnerable, all type of shit. So seeing him fly around and take out people and get into these massive space brawls is something we wanted to see done very, very well since the beginning. So I don't see why they didn't initiate on this further when people have been asking for another Superman film since Man of Steel. Batman is, of course, you know, I like Batman, but he is oversaturated at DC for content, but I understand Batman's popularity and what he means to the brand, so making him part of this trinity makes sense, along with the other people. I think this could lead to another Justice League movie, and they could cap off the 10-year plan if it works out well with another Justice League that will be hopefully worthwhile to watch while they can set up the big bad. I totally don't mind the powerhouse being used as long as they're used in innovative ways that will shock and awe the audience for years to come. Next, we're talking about David Zasloff's plans to make Black Adam, The Flash, and Aquaman 2, Shazam even, better with reshoots. I think this is cool. He was talking in the beginning about how he was not going to release a movie until it's ready, until it's better, and basically like strengthening that core once again with the reshoots, because you can always make a good film even more excellent if you add on to it and realize what are things that people liked, didn't like, etc. I think that's what they're doing with the extensive audience testing out there in the public, and people, you know, going to see these movies under NDA and giving their opinion, and they're cutting back fat or they're adding in cool concepts to make this the best it possibly can be. I don't mind the perfectionist values when it comes to taking this seriously, because it's something that DC needed for a long time. A core structure of a really, really good film, and I think so far they've been doing relatively okay in that regard. You know, extensive testing and reshooting is nice if it definitely adds something to the structure. Nothing unnecessary, nothing bloated, just adding that core structure and making it good as it possibly can be. I don't mind this philosophy at all. Next up is everything is frozen to a new leadership, so I think any big decisions like how they're gonna handle Ezra and whatnot, I think that's not going to be decided upon until next year at the latest, and I do think they will eventually kick him off the project and not promote him on the project, keep him as far away as possible, and then recast like slowly but surely to sweep that under the rug. This is something I also think is good, because naturally speaking, when you're really looking for that next visionary, that next Kevin Feige, it's not going to come overnight. It's not going to come out of a blue moon, and we're going to talk about that later. It's something that is very, very serious when you put someone in that role, and of course he has to deal with the fucking, you know, the guy who's in this role, whatever. He has to deal with the fucking Snyderverse trolls, you know, constantly hounding him, asking him to bring the verse back. And I think if he doesn't, he's gonna get automatically hated. They hit the hard reset button with this one. I don't mind things being frozen until they figure out a plan, figure out what to do, because naturally speaking, planning takes time. Like I said, it's not something that fucking happens overnight. It takes time, it takes dedication, it takes searching until you find that next visionary, that next person that aligns with the stuff that you want, that you need, the quotas that you need to see done. And that's not easy, so I don't mind them freezing like certain aspects of the DCEU until they figure it out. And the last thing in the good list is the Elseworlds is continuing. So you got your sequels like the Batman 2. Obviously that's not going to get axed. That's not going anywhere. Peacemaker season 2, that's not going anywhere, because they know that was a huge success for streaming platforms. You got the Joker 2, which recently announced that, I mean, Gaga's going to be the Harley Quinn of that universe, and they're making it into a musical. I'm sure it's a vastly different format than what I expected. It's something that I wish they would have stuck to the hardcore mental illness story with this, but maybe in a musical they can capture all those aspects in a different way, so that lends to optimism once you finally see the movie. It's good that they don't necessarily have to continue these universes in the DCEU, and they can thrive on their own as DC films. It means that we have darker, mature subject matter that is not linked to anything like Ben Affleck's Batman, you know, with Rob Pattinson and everything. It's gonna confuse people surely, but it means they can make other Elseworlds like Earth 2 thrive while not really cannibalizing them or mixing them, which I hope they don't do. But who knows, maybe they will do a Crisis on Infinite Earths event or something like that. You never know in the future. I mean, I would be down for it if they make it good, but you know, that's just me, right? That's just me talking right there. But yeah, I am done with talking about the good for the structure of the DCEU. So next we're going to talk about the mix. Stuff that I'm feeling 50-50 about. And the first thing is DC focusing on a 10-year plan, citing the Marvel Cinematic Universe as a reference point. Now, while this may seem good on paper, David Zaslav has not proven himself yet, and I know it might be preemptively judging, but considering the fact that DC has been rebooted, trying to get their shit together and constantly having stumbling blocks, there is cause for being skeptical. I think that I will not believe it until I see this plan realized, and if there will be that quality control behind it. I don't want to fall for lip service where you're telling me something that I'm really into, that I'm really enjoying, that's really sucking me in, and then you don't meet those standards, like how the DCEU was originally initiated. And then on top of that giant skepticism pie, you guys are trying to be like the MCU. I think DC thrives more when they're not trying to emulate the Marvel Cinematic Universe. That was a once in a lifetime event. That was a thing that was complete lightning in a storm, lightning in a bottle, and you're not going to be able to recapture that essence yet again. It's just not going to work for you. So what DC needs to focus on is how their own characterization works, how their own sort of stories work, and capture that dark element, which not all MCU films are doing. That's how you break the mold and become Detective Comics. I think that's the most important part. That's what they should focus on. There's nothing wrong with saying, hey, MCU definitely has a plan and we want to initiate that for ourselves. However, you have to be yourselves in the process as well. As confusing as that might sound, yeah, you have to be what you were in the first place in order to succeed. And when people see that distinct stylistic choice, they're gonna say, hey, DC's coming back and in their own way. That's the best thing they could do. Next up, let me see here, what else? Focusing on theatrical releases mostly with DC. And I'm mixed about this because yes, while I do believe that, and it ties into the next sort of mixed aspect I have, I do believe that you need to focus on the big powerhouses. If you're going to emulate Marvel, they didn't get where they were by focusing on just Iron Man 24/7. While he was a big component of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, they started establishing other characters. DC has so many other characters, and if they're not taking a risk like they weren't with Batgirl, then what is the point of trying to make an extended universe? It's not just going to be all Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, and Aquaman forever. You're not going to have those characters forever just leading the charge and hoping that they stick the landing the most. While they are working on like characters like Shazam and Black Adam, you need to extend the olive branch and maybe take a risk on these smaller DC Universe characters who might be a one-off, like you can definitely make a show out of Constantine, or definitely make a movie out of Constantine where people might enjoy it if it's really, really good. Because I am so concerned on the idea that they want to focus on the Trinity first, I think that's going to leave little room for creativity, and I hope that is not the case. I think these smaller characters still should get love and recognition and parts of their own lore and universe expanded upon in the DC Extended Universe. And if they don't focus on that, I think that is grounds for failure. Next up is they're going to be selective with their originals. And like I said, I don't like this too much, because once again, while you could do something with the originals on HBO Max that you should select, like Peacemaker, I believe that there are definitely characters you could put on HBO Max that would thrive. Like, think about something crazy like a Lobo show, or Superboy or something like that. Like, that'd be nuts. I will watch it. That'd be cool. Supergirl, if you don't feel confident to put her on the silver screen, then you could put her on like an HBO Max show and maybe make it like a 8-episode event, and then chronicle her story and how she might meet the next Superman. You know what I mean? You could do something like that, and it wouldn't be any problem, because she would be effectively crossing the streams, as they say, between movie to TV show. That's what Feige really excels at. All these TV shows aren't there without a reason, you know what I mean? They're there because they're going to use this platform to cross over some of these characters so they can sort of mingle together. And that's what they're doing with Daredevil and She-Hulk, and you see them sort of crossing over, and you see film characters crossing over, and that's a good thing, because it shows that everything is interconnected. If you don't have that tissue, then once again it's going to suffer if you're trying to emulate the competition and you're not really doing so or understanding how they operate with these TV shows. I know Peacemaker is canon to the DC Extended Universe, but I would like to see more and how they're going to handle it. And if they are being selective with shows, then I just have a feeling that they're going to pick the popular ones, and that's it. The lack of a DC fandom this year is absolutely weird. Although I'm 50-50, so I do get why there's not a DC fandom event, because if you're putting everything on pause and you're doing a reset, then I assume they have no content to show us whatsoever at all. They're not ready, prepared, they don't have a general idea. We're not getting a DC fandom this year. We're gonna get one probably next year. I would be shocked if it comes up and blows us away and they finally have some more to present. I just don't think it's happening, because they're doing this hard reset, this hard reboot of the timeline. Therefore, what are you going to show me? Absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing, right? It sucks, because I like DC fandom, and for the uninitiated, DC fandom is when they show off all the works of DC, from comics to animated, live action, etc., TV shows, all of it. This is the main event where they give us news, and I think what's going to happen is they're not going to show it this year, but instead we're going to have Marvel stuff to sort of fill the palette, because 100% D23 is on, and when you have a plan, you can sort of sit back and say, hey, we're going to unslot phase 6, and we're not going to show you guys the rest of it until we finally do our own thing like the big wigs we are, and we're going to fucking put that out there and say, hey, wait until D23 and you're going to be blown away by all this news. This was DC's opportunity to do that, and now they're not going to do that. Although, like I said, I understand why they're freezing things until they finally get it together. Oh, next up is the bad. All the stuff that either I didn't like, or these are things that are going to hurt DC in the long run for doing these wacky ass decisions. Kevin Feige was reaching out sending heartfelt messages to the directors of Batgirl. I know they worked together before in Ms. Marvel and everything, but you know what this means for DC? This essentially means Kevin Feige is trying to grab them away from DC, and that's bad. Your competition is trying to put out those ghost hands and reel in the people who work for you and who might be disappointed because their movie got canceled and might be extremely frustrated. They didn't know, like one of them was at a wedding and he heard the news like from there. So imagine how you feel like you're trying to get married to your wife and then your big project that you've been working on for like 7 months, it gets canceled right before your very eyes. Then the competition's like, you know what, I got you, don't worry, I might have some more work for you, etc. This is lip service to be put in their favor. And if they grab them and put them in like permanent slots and stuff like that and big projects, that means that you basically will not be able to get them at all when you really need them for something else, and that's bad. Low morale and constantly like shafting your creatives, that's bad, because what if they make a really solid movie or show for the competition and you don't have that at the moment? You don't have that at all. You don't have that on your palette. That's not good. That's not good for DC. So yeah, competition is good, and I think DC made a fucky wucky into the forever box due to the situation. It's no different than when Disney fired James Gunn all because of accusations, and then what happened was, when it turned out to be bullshit, DC picked up Gunn and managed to have him do a movie for them, which was Suicide Squad. Now the reverse could happen from DC to Marvel, where these bad boys for life directors, they did good projects. Now the competition might pick them up and do more stuff with them, and you missed out on an opportunity. You see how that works? Yeah, that's not good at all. Next up is, I think I told about this before, where Walter Hamada wants to leave DC Studios due to the Batgirl erasure. I'll keep it brief once more. Losing creative talent is never a good sign, just like the previous question, you know, that we had. So they're going to make another fucky wucky if they lose Hamada, and he's been very good to the studio, making the money with Aquaman, making the money with overseeing the Batman, making the money with overseeing Joker. He has a nice like horror creative background, so if you ever wanted to make like a future DC EU horror movie, then him and James Wan, they would be the perfect people to go to. And like I said, he had Wan's back, he had James Gunn's back. You're gonna want to keep someone like that. Next up on the bad list is Warner Bros. Discovery state that kids and animation content will be seeing a broad range of cuts across streaming and linear platforms, and that sounds bad for DC animated. Like, are they going to cut DC animated projects that they don't believe in? I know they had a DC AU slate that they announced. Are those movies going to be affected? Will they cut the Harley Quinn show, which from what I heard, a lot of people are growing to like? I remember watching the first episode, not liking it, and then as it grew on, I started to really get into it. So is that show going to be cut? You know, people are going to ask those questions, and I think DC animated is still a strong pillar that they should keep. And a lot of people say like their animated projects are top tier, so why would you get rid of something that is good, that has a dedicated fan base? I don't get that or understand. That would be bad. That would be really fucking bad, because all you're doing at that point is just alienating people because you want to save money. Now I understand, as a company you got to spend wisely, I get that. However, that being said, guys, if you have like really good ideas for DC Animated. You should not neglect them just because. Next up is the cancellation of Batgirl, the news that shook the world. This is bad for several reasons. I hear insiders say that the assembly cut of the movie was just as good as Black Adam was initially. Therefore, those people saying that it was mixed or whatever, you know, I would believe insiders over these people personally trying to be internet gossip gurus and pretend they know what the fuck they're talking about when they really don't. Insiders are saying that this cut of the movie was actually really good, and Zaslav is like, you know, cut it, get rid of it, I want to save money. And then there's the philosophy of, well, they got Snyder cut out and done. This movie was close to the finish line. It needed to be edited. It wasn't the full vision. You really didn't give it a chance. You just cut it for tax write-off. I think that Batgirl should come out so it could be judged by the populace, and then we give our overall court of opinion to what we think about the movie. I don't think that they should just sit on it forever. You got 7 months of fucking film footage, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, it's gone. We can't see this anymore. Like, let the people decide for themselves if the movie was worth its merit. The same insiders were saying that anything is possible, anything could happen. I am hoping they retract this decision and we finally get this film in some format, either for streaming or theatrical. They're trying to once again shy away from streaming, saying that it's losing the money, but I think it should come out regardless. If they can switch Blue Beetle from streaming to theatrical and stick with that movie, stick with the guns of that movie, they could do the same for Batgirl. Last but not least, the implication of not taking risks on lesser characters due to budgetary reasons. I talked about this earlier. I said that DC is an overall broad branch of extended characters, storylines, multiverses, etc. So the idea of saying, hey, we're gonna focus on just Batman, Aquaman, Wonder Woman, and Superman for now is kind of limiting. If they want to fully emulate Feige, then they have to focus on those side characters that really might be a side story, or they might have some interesting prospects to them here or there that will warrant a movie or showing up in the future for a possible Justice League team up. One good example on the MCU side is the Guardians of the Galaxy. Not many people really knew who those folks were. Not many people knew who Eternals were. So they decided to take a shot on these lesser known characters in order to further out and flesh out the story. And if DCEU isn't going to do that with an extended universe, then what is the point of even having a cinematic universe to begin with if you're not going to take risks on characters who might be deemed as obscure? That boggles my mind. Now we get to the part where all the good, all the bad, all the mix, it has been illustrated on this podcast to the best of my ability. We have lingering questions, and this might be like not necessarily bad, but just questions about how they're gonna handle this stuff. So I will, start as quick as possible. I think her name is Sasha Callie, is Supergirl. Is she gonna have an unknown future? I heard rumors that her movie was canceled. They just literally put her in the Flash, and if that could happen to Leslie Grace, then this could happen to her as well, having an unknown future in the DCEU and not having that spin-off movie going forward. And like I said, killing the potential of spin-offs is bad for a cinematic universe. You're gonna want to have as many people as possible on board to lead up to these big earth-ending events, you know what I mean? Are you gonna bring back Henry Cavill as Superman? I heard rumors that he will not be able to renew anything until 2025, but Warner Brothers really likes him, so you need to stop showing the headless Superman montages and everything like that and finally bring him back, because people would get excited. That would instill goodwill considering that they like him as Superman, WB likes him as Superman, he likes being Superman. We are all on borrowed time, you know, so they have to strike while the iron is hot, while he still is able to do it before he gets to a certain age where he's like, fuck it, I'm done. I'm too old for this now. Like, you don't want that to happen, so you're gonna want to strike while the iron is hot as soon as possible. Otherwise, he's just gonna do his own thing and own projects and have success, and then this will be equated to what I like to call a mismanaged opportunity. The lack of a real film slate for the DC extended universe. If they're gonna hit the hard reset button, one of the things that Feige at least does over there at Marvel is that he gives you a projected date and a projected year of when something comes out. It doesn't have to be a trailer. It doesn't have to be a teaser. It could just simply be, hey, we have these JPEGs up on screen. Please be excited for what's coming next. DC, why are you not doing that? You know, I think a real 10-year film slate for about as much as you can cover, it needs to be illustrated. Like, what is the next move going to be, and what is the estimated date? Sure, you can delay it all you want, that's fine, but having some sort of plan initiated and visualized is what we need to see. We already talked about lip service, about don't tell us but show us, and I gave like some examples of things they could show, especially with the lack of a real film slate. Black Adam being DC's Thanos. This is a rumor, so I don't know how much stock and credibility it will have. I'm just hoping that Black Adam is not going to be built up as the next big bad. I think he should be like in a Superman film with Shazam, and they both should fight him so they could do Superman Shazam versus Black Adam, but I don't think he's Thanos tier as a villain. He doesn't scream Darkseid to me, you know what I mean? Or any of the other like bigger DC villains. Like, you can make a big Brainiac story or something like that, but still, like, no, it doesn't work. I don't buy it. I hope he's not the Thanos of the 10-year plan. I just don't see it for this character. But I am skeptical because Dwayne The Rock Johnson did say, you know, the hierarchy of power in the DC universe is about to change, and I'm wondering, what do you mean by that? Does that mean you're getting more work? Like, just a little food for thought. And the last one is a good question. Will these canceled characters, you know, like Batgirl, whatever, are they still gonna play these characters in the DC extended universe timeline even if their movie has been canceled? That is a very good question. That is a question that needs to be talked about, that needs to be pondered, that needs to be put on the table, because just because you got rid of this movie, does that mean that the character itself is axed, you know? Or are you gonna recast and have a new Batgirl down the line? Are you gonna bother with Batgirl at all? That is something that needs to be illustrated, elaborated upon, and, you know, are you gonna do mixing and matching, or are you not? Shit or get out the pot. Like, is it gonna be one way or the other? What's gonna happen there? Just because the movie is over doesn't mean they could axe the character. After all, I mean, Keaton was in this movie. Is Keaton's future gonna be different because the Flash, you know, it's having like reshoots? What's that like what's the deal with that? What's that's gonna be like? It's a lot to really sort of take in. Are you gonna even continue with Keaton crossing over in the multiverse or not, because you got rid of one criteria with him in it? It's, man, it's a lot on the palette. The only thing I can say out of grace and optimism is that I hope David Zasloff knows what he's doing, because if not, we're gonna have that same situation again as DC fans. We're gonna have it where we see the competition eating good on the other side of the fence, and we're not getting that. We're not experiencing that. The only thing I could hope for is that these words turn true into fruition and we do get those quality big budget DC movies in the theaters while they take their time with things. That's the hopeful part, and expand upon not only the universe but the Elseworlds themselves. That's the main objective, that's the main goal. Very easy to hit if they take their time, patience, and dedication, but very hard as well. And the last thing that I sort of agree with was when Eric Davis was talking to another insider called Umberto. He said that, he said that DC, they shouldn't just be looking for the next Kevin Feige. They should be using a committee of people together with fantastic ideas that will be seen as the backbone, the cooks in the kitchen behind DC Studios. So Jim Lee, who's been there for a long time, would be considered as DC's Stan Lee. You have Walter Hamada, good story ideas, etc. And he could bring something to the table, and then you have other creatives there, creative directors. You got James Wan, James Gunn, etc. The list goes on. Have these people come together and ping pong ideas instead of focusing on the next Kevin Feige. You know, David Sandberg, he also has a good head on his shoulders, the guy who is directing Shazam. A lot of good opinions about his takes on movies and how they're structured and test audiences. I would recommend giving that man a listen because he knows what he's talking about. Get those people who know what they're talking about, make that committee and stick them together like glue and see what ideas they come up with, instead of just saying we got to find the next solo visionary fast because we're getting swept. That's not the way to do it. Focus on the core that matters, and then if you have to build, so be it. But you know, I think that's the issue here, is that there's an underutilization of that team. So I hope they definitely stick the landing with DC Studios. Anyway, this is Renegade Operative signing off. Hopefully you guys really enjoyed this one-man podcast on the 10-year plan for DC Extended Universe. I enjoyed talking about this. Once again, if you really liked the video, please be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Really helps me out a lot. And I will see you guys next time for the next one. Hopefully, when we do talk more about DC, it is not in a mixed or bad light for half of the video. That is mostly just positive going forward. Like I said, I will see you guys soon. Take care and peace out.